So just think about the difference between spending $50 an acre to manage the same trees that people in the industry are managing with $5,000 and $8,000 per acre. These people are athletes. They're really physically talented, intelligently wired to do really difficult physical things under really bad circumstances.
You're saying in this high inflation environment where everything is going up,
Yes.
you're actually bringing costs down? You're not joking. Did I hear you right?
Yes, I'm telling you that I have cost models going back to 2018, and I have forward-looking cost models that go to 2031 currently. Literally, if you Google them right now, if you use the best AI search today on the internet, it would tell you what I'm doing doesn't work.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Disclaimer, the views are the guests alone, not those of the host or sponsors.
Welcome to a new episode of From Boots to Boardroom. I'm your host, Hari Vasudevan, founder and CEO of KYRO AI. Previously, I was the founder and CEO of Think Power Solutions. The show shares the educational, entertainment, and entrepreneurial journeys of those who power America. Presenting sponsor for the show is KYRO AI, digitize work and maximize profits. For more information, visit KYRO.ai. We couldn't have a better guest for this show. It's my good friend, Greg Smith. He knows all about how to digitize work and maximize profits and save ratepayers money. Greg Smith has more than 20 years of experience across manufacturing, supply chain, and electric utility operations. Over the past decade, with his current utility, Greg has led everything from fleet and supply chain to transmission and vegetation programs under FAC 003. For the last 5 years, he's been all in on vegetation management, and I know that. He truly brings a Moneyball mindset to what's traditionally been a biologically driven field. By the way, I love the movie Moneyball. When he's not
Excellent
working,
movie.
yeah, I love it. When he's not working, you'll find him outdoors hunting, fishing, or spending time with his family. So, Greg, welcome to
Yes,
the show,
sir.
my friend.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm excited to chat today.
Awesome. So, let me start off with a very difficult question.
Okay.
If there's only one thing you would do, would it be hunting or fishing?
I would definitely be more on the hunting side for sure. Now,
Interesting.
my dad is very disappointed in that response because my family is all about fishing. They like hunting, but fishing is the thing. But that's the path I followed growing up.
What's the coolest place you ever hunted in?
The coolest place I've ever hunted, uh, I would have to say it's in Idaho. And it's in backcountry, like high altitudes, national forest. Like when you're in there, there's no coming out unless you're on a helicopter. So you got to stay on your feet or get out through emergency protocol.
Got it. Got it. All right. So you know what? I'm sure those hunting experiences has shaped your leadership style. What experiences, both personally, professionally, after my hobbies, whatever, has shaped your leadership style, if you will, Greg?
Yeah, so that's kind of a loaded question, Hari. I have a long background in leadership. Um, just to give you a foundational idea of where it started, when I was 15 years old, I was in the Boy Scouts.
Got it.
Um, there was
Me
a
too. By the
group.
way, I was in
Okay,
the Scouts
excellent.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got my Eagle Scout way back in the day, but when I was 15, there was a group of men in my hometown, and um, they put together a week-long leadership training camp when I was 15, and I went as a participant. It was based on an organizational or actually marketed leadership strategy for business. And I wish I knew the name today, but I mean, I was 15 years old. So all of the principles they taught for that whole week were actually marketed and successfully sold on a platform for executives all around the world.
Hmm.
And so I remember coming home from that leadership aspect, and it foundationally, I think it looked at performance measures and it looked at service oriented leadership. So it really taught two things. How do you make the people that you're leading effective? And then how do you measure performance to motivate results? Because if you look at like sports as an example, the reason people are out there is to get across the goal line. So how do you define the goal line and how do you measure the progress and make it fair so that everybody feels accomplished? And then two 2 years after I was a participant, I went back as a counselor, and then I also went back as part of the presidency and leadership team that organized that week long camp out. So I would say Boy Scouts, my relationships with adults, and then mentorship through organizational structure since I was as early in my 20s.
Yeah.
So
No, awesome. That's great. That's great. So, let's kind of delve into vegetation management. That's your sweet spot that we want to talk about
yes,
today.
sir.
Uh, this veg management is one of the what I think is three foundational aspects of any utility. One is asset inspection, which you do, if I
Yes,
remember right. The second, I think, is veg management, which both are very much interconnected, right?
yes, sir.
The third is storm response, which are interconnected to the first
Yes,
two,
sir.
right?
yes, sir.
Really, all those three are super interconnected, and the cost, the ratepayers a lot of money, right? And if done right, there can be a lot of savings, right?
Yes, sir.
Um, where do you think AI will impact vegetation management? How can AI revolutionize utility veg management, in your opinion? You're in the business. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we're at the precipice of answering that question. I think everybody's at the front end of that question, and we're all trying to sit there and go, what does this bring to the table? So as I look at AI, really when you're looking at vegetation management, you're looking at an aspect of work, and really when you're looking at storms, you're looking at an aspect of work, and then structural integrity, you're looking at aspects of work that aren't predictable. Because when you look at what is predicted, everything is predicted to be stable under almost every circumstance based on an engineering platform when the system was designed, if that makes sense. So, really, what you're looking for is the unexpected, right? You're looking for things you can't predict because if it was predictable, it was probably addressed in the design. AI has the ability to look at significant swaths of data and then model that information and boil it down into what's critical so that then you're making decisions based on the information, which is humongous, right? Think about having 12,000 structures to inspect and you're trying to find which one is going to cause the next outage.
Or hundreds of thousands for
Yes, or hundreds of thousands. Yeah, so the manpower, the mind power, the data manipulation it takes by a human to facilitate and answer that question, hopefully we can model AI so that it can be aware of what we're looking for, and then we can just throw information at it through our day-to-day protocols and data collection. And then AI is saying, have you looked here? Have you looked here? Have you looked here? So really, it can just narrow that search that we spend hours and hours and hours in spreadsheets, in data sets, in
yeah,
softwares that basically collect and archive data.
yeah. They don't give you business intelligence. I thought
Yes,
I thought you love spreadsheets.
I love spreadsheets, but I would love it better if a computer was telling me, look at this cell,
Right.
because
No,
then I could
fair
go
enough.
from there backwards instead of from the big picture to the little one.
Yeah, no, fair
Uh,
enough on that.
yeah.
Honestly, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you think about it, the utilities have poured, if I remember right, about $1.3 trillion since 2014 to improve the grid, which is necessary, right? I think 178, $180 billion bucks just last year alone, right?
hmm
And if you look at recent Edison Electric Institute data, there's going to be another $1 trillion in investments between now and 2029. If you think about it, right?
Yes.
That's insane. I mean, obviously, I can't read any major newspaper today without reading about AI at least once a week, right? If not, the
Yes.
frequency is even more, right? But still, the reliability metrics, if you look at it, has barely budged, right? Across the country. I mean, there's many reasons to it, storm being one of them. If you
Hmm.
if you take it out, maybe the reliability metrics have significantly improved. But the reality is storm has impacted reliability, and veg management clearly comes into play there. So uh, somebody I know very well, Eric East and Centerpoint Energy. They're doing something really cool with LiDAR. I know you guys talk and things like that.
Hmm.
They've figured out, at least in a pilot basis, where they're able to predict uh, fuse potential fuse outages during a storm with almost 80-85% accuracy, able to mobilize crews there before a storm, proactively
Hmm.
do wedge management and reduce the impact of outages and things like that, right? So the main reason I'm kind of giving this prelude is LiDAR, which I know is close, near and dear to your heart. What's your take on LiDAR? How do you get better value out of it?
Well, I think AI is the answer to that question when you really look at it. So LiDAR is a great starting place and then a good security blanket over time. But when you look at the cost per mile, cost per structure, cost per span, LiDAR is a really expensive way to collect information, right? The other thing about LiDAR, when you apply it specifically to vegetation management, LiDAR doesn't see a tree until it is a tree. So when you talk about the development of a tree, it goes through stages before it becomes a tree. So on a right-of-way, brush is anything smaller than 5 inches or less than 12 feet. Well, could be a lot of trees. LiDAR doesn't see that, right? When you talk about the cost of vegetation management, it's most cost effective to manage trees before they become large or significantly dense.
Yeah.
So if you're
So, I want to
utilizing
jump in there.
LiDAR over time,
Yeah, if I may,
you're,
let me just jump
yes.
in there just for the listeners here. I'm looking at the KPMG data. The cost of veg management, which you know very well, Greg, is
Hmm.
$5,000 to $8,000 per mile.
Yes.
That's a lot of money out there. And, think about it. That's across the country. There are regions which
Hmm.
are more expensive, clearly, regions which are less expensive. I just jumped in just to give people a idea as to how much we're talking about. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of miles of transmission line, distribution lines, in $5,000 to $8,000 per mile. And the cycles, which we'll get into, are once every 4, once every 5 years. So you're talking about a lot of veg management, a lot of money that's being spent in veg management. Keep going, Greg. Sorry.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you just shared, that $5,000 to $8,000 is representative of size and density, which is also representative of the LiDAR use. So if you wait to identify vegetation and manage it at LiDAR stages, what you just said is true, $5,000 to $8,000 a mile. What I'm finding as we collect data and we manage size and density information through other alternatives, which are before the LiDAR thresholds, we're getting significant savings on the cost per acre, cost per mile. And when I say significant, I'm talking in some areas, to your point, less vegetation, less density, less prolific growth, less water. We're seeing $6 an acre. In areas like New York, where you have tall growing trees, dense forests, conditions that produce big plants, less wind, less storms. Um, right? We're getting to down to $150 an acre. And we think we can get to around the $50 an acre mark. So just think about the difference between spending $50 an acre to manage the same trees that people in the industry are managing with $5,000 and $8,000 per acre. And
Jeez.
to me, that's where the models we've been using as it relates, and we're not into AI yet, but as it relates to real-time data collection and an analysis and then measure of performance, like I spoke to before, if we set the right measures, measure the right performance, get the right information in a timely manner, we can address these threats long before the costs escalate to $5,000 to
Yeah.
$8,000.
How do you do that? I mean, that's actually the obvious question, right? How do you do that? Because, a lot of what you said is I learned this term from you, which is how to look below the grass, right?
Yes.
Before something actually grows from that less than 5 inches, which you just said, to something fast growth and
hmm
impacts distribution transmission line. How do you target size and density? How can that be fueled by AI?
Yeah, so the neat thing about data and change management and AI, this is what's exciting. Transmission systems are static. So when you really look at that initial data collection, it's how do you leverage data over time and then collect large swaths of information and comparatively manage it over time. That's AI's specialty, right? AI can take target data sets and take new data and quickly give you information based on performance. This is where you were, this is where you are, this is where you can be, correct? The longer you collect those data sets consecutively over time, the better AI can actually manipulate the data and give you better information, right? Because it's called learning, right? These
Yes.
systems actually autocorrect. They say, I was wrong last time. This is why I was wrong, and it starts giving you better data. So we've actually been doing that in partnership with Think Power KYRO since about 2018. And what I'm finding is, specifically to answer the question, below the grass. So the first time I'm there, if I can identify the threatening species that have caused my systems globally, and I understand where they live. So imagine having a 106-mile line, correct? And I'm targeting 15 tree species specifically in this geographic region. Well, 108 miles is a lot of acres. It's almost 2,500 acres, right? So if I pretend like all of those species live in every acre, that's really expensive work. But if I can eliminate 2,000 acres, narrow it down to 500 acres, and then start to manage those 500 acres with the appropriate cost structure to where they match the 2,000 acres, because integrated vegetation management teaches us that we can change biodiversity, we can change plant structure, we can change environmental structure. And so we simply start with LiDAR, identify where's our biggest threats, then we go to those threats with the appropriately sized crews. We limit the acres those crews are working in. And then we follow through over time and we start looking below the grass, because once you do something, it doesn't go away. These are 100-year-old systems, 50-year-old systems, 30-year-old systems. They don't disappear, they move to a new stage. And so instead of using LiDAR to see something that's at grass or at shrub level, for instance, we were on our system down in College Station here recently, just this past week. We have 6-month-old trees that are 12 feet tall and 8 feet tall and 4 feet tall. Well, that's not normal growth structure. So I understand what I have below the grass is dormant root structure that's producing fast growing tall trees. So my cycle approach needs to shrink, because if I leave a tree that grows that fast in 6 months for 4 years, I have a 25-foot tall tree and I'm back to the 5,000 to 8,000 cost threshold to manage. Right now, I can go do a targeted basil application and kill that with a $70 an acre cost,
As opposed to, uh,
waiting 4 years and having a
and
25-foot tall
and
forest.
it's clearly the 5 to 8,000 range if you're talking about that
Yes.
stage, right? So let's for the listener here who may not know about cycles, right?
Okay.
Uh, but who are still in the industry, and for the average Joe listening to the show, can you uh, quickly give them an idea as to what veg management is? What are you referring to when you're talking about fixed cycle versus condition based planning and things like that?
Yeah. So when you look at a cycle approach, it's picking any poor period of time and saying, I'm going to address the vegetation issues on this right of way corridor. Again, 108 miles, 50 miles, sometimes it's 300 miles. You're essentially saying, I think that on a 4-year cycle, if I come here once every 4 years, I can address everything I need. the concept comes back to efficiency and cost, right? Well, I only have to run that crew. It's localized. They're doing the same thing, correct? Well, the reality is if your vegetation profiles over 108 miles aren't consistent, sometimes you're going loaded for bear to shoot a squirrel, right? Which it's overkill, right? And then other times you're going loaded for squirrel and you got a bear. So because that 108 miles isn't consistent, you're basically either overspending or underspending, which causes future overspending because you didn't address the problem and you paid for someone to get there. So these cycle-based approaches aren't addressing the whole problem. They're catching what they can catch, and then we're having to go back over and over and over as these issues escalate.
Yeah.
And size drives cost, density drives cost, time drives size and density, right? So the longer I wait, the more expensive it inevitably is. So when you look at a condition-based approach, and I'll give you a specific example. This past year, we went out and we did herbicide on our right of way. We did 262 miles of herbicide, and we broke it down into about 10-mile stretches a day. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 15, but on average, it's 10 miles a day, right? If I look at the 262 miles, it took 21 days to facilitate that work. We used 260 gallons. Well, the data I have from collecting information while the process was happening shows me that 96 gallons happened in 12 miles.
Wow.
So when you spread 260 gallons over 262 miles, it doesn't sound like a big problem. But when you understand 96 gallons happened on 12 miles, you quickly understand where your target area is
Yeah.
for work next year and
Clearly.
where you need to escalate effort. I had 2 other places that equated to about 20 and 40 gallons in a 10 or 12-mile stretch. So again, next year, I restructured my plan. And in those areas where I had elevated threats and indicators, I'm addressing it with an elevated response so that we don't see that get out of hand and grow to a higher cost. So again, I'm instead of addressing it at my $14 per acre cost, which was my 2025 cost, next year I'm probably going to do a $60 to $70 an acre cost in those acres. So it represents about 36 miles of the 262. And it's because the information I have helps me understand size density, correct? In a timely manner, because we did this in April, right? So worst case scenario, if I'm back next April, I have 12 months of growth or 12 months of biologic time when you look at the plant progression. So if I get there within 12 months of the time I was there, it's safe to assume that my cost shouldn't escalate significantly from what I did last year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No.
so again, that's AI. I'm doing this manually. If AI was looking at my data, it would quickly be able to calculate and say, here are the areas you need to
Yeah.
address.
You're,
This is
you're
where you
doing that
applied.
math manually
Yes,
on the back end of it.
I'm using software to collect the data, right?
Yes.
So
That is important at the end of the day.
we can teach AI to do what I'm doing in spreadsheets, and I can quickly have that information next day,
Yeah. I think
right?
that's where agentic AI comes into play, which
Yeah.
we've talked about offline, where, you're able to query information from different sources of data. And in your case, it's LiDAR, KYRO, and
Hmm.
you may still have one or two spreadsheets. So some agent going in and getting information from all those and spitting out the information that you're looking for, which helps you make better decisions at the end of the
Hmm.
day, right? So
Yes, sir.
so essentially what you're saying is, based on fixed cycle approach, the cost can be high, but the data can be used to actually go into a targeted condition based approach, and target more of a size and density in below the grass approach, right? Is that a
Yes.
reasonable way to put at it,
Yeah,
right?
yes, exactly. So when you look at the fixed versus conditioned, um, in my conditioned version, I'm going to look at 262 acres, but I'm boiling it down to 35 acres of actual focused work while managing the rest of the acres or miles with the appropriate level of work at a very low cost. In a cycle-based approach, I am approaching the whole system like it's one. I'm spending the same price on a agriculture acre as I am dense tree and forest acre, right? And I'm not even guaranteeing that the people and equipment I sent there can address everything that's there, which means eventually I have to come back. The other thing I'm seeing is industry wide, we're not using good field tools to report this information. So we don't even know where those places are when we're done with the work. Like
Yeah.
literally, we do the work, we find those places, we don't report it. And so we have to go back and rediscover what we already drove past and identified last year during the work. Whereas using the KYRO tool, it's offline, it's field capable, my people are reporting in real time, right? When they're done with their work, I have indicators for the work I need for next year
Yeah.
already.
Do you know of a good field data collection tool, Greg?
Uh, I didn't until I met Think Power. Honestly.
What is the new name of that tool that you're using?
KYRO.
Let's
Yeah.
use that, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But honestly, KYRO has I've been in real-time work situations. I come from supply chain. So when you think about automation of software, warehousing and logistics is where it all started. Think about barcoding in a grocery store,
Yep. Yep.
correct? So I've been around this technology since I was in my 20s. And I've always challenged executives because I'll go to them and I'll be like, hey, we need to automate our warehousing processes. It saves time, it saves money, it creates accuracy, which makes the business more efficient. And they'll be like, prove it. And I've said, okay, two of you go to the grocery store, like one person pick up an apple, a banana, and a cabbage and go to the register with a checkbook. And the other guy grabbed 3 candy bars and a credit card. Tell me who gets through the line first, right?
Okay.
That's as simple as what we're talking about is if you give people the right tools to do the right kind of work while they're working,
Yeah.
right? So this isn't additional work. This isn't a piece of paper that gets filed and gets scanned and gets inputted into a spreadsheet and somebody's got it in a file location. This goes into a data set where you've normalized the information, you've set a performance standard that says, this is what I expect. I want to know if it doesn't do what I expect, right? Which is AI,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So
You're,
now
you're, you're,
every acre has a performance measure. That 96 gallons over 12 miles didn't meet our performance standards. So we automatically go, we have an indicator. How do we want to respond? We look at the photos from the field inspections and we go, more herbicide.
yeah.
Well, what's the appropriate threshold? Is it foliar? Is it basal? Is it 2 people? Is it 6 people? We have all that information as a result of the field activities because we collected the information while they were working.
Essentially, I mean, really, you're talking about garbage in, garbage out. And
Yes.
if you don't have the right data, literally everything you're talking about in terms of AI doing your analysis and giving you the insights to make better decisions
Mhm.
is just not possible, right? You need to
Yes,
have
sir.
good LiDAR data. You need to have good field data collection, reliable data collection, because, LiDAR cycles are, let's call it as once a year, maybe, right? And
I see them. The most frequent I generally see them is 4 years.
yeah, no, but some very few utilities do once a year, but
Yes.
literally once every 4 or 5 years is more common, right?
Yeah,
And
California, you see the once a year, but not outside that state very
I
much.
know. So you're doing that. So let's call it as once every 4 years for the sake of this
Yes.
discussion. Between 2025 and 2029, you still need to know what is happening to your growth. And somebody is going to go on the transmission line doing asset inspections. We talked about how asset inspection, wedge management, storm, these are all interconnected,
Yes.
right? So if you're able to collect the data really accurately, reliably, and map it to your LiDAR data, and then help make decisions, you have a much better odds of making a much better decision that's going to impact reliability, right? Because
Yes.
for the average Joe out there, let's kind of delve into that, if you will, Greg. I'm an average Joe. I'm not in the utility industry. Why the hell do I care about wedge management? Hey, you know
Okay.
what? Somebody comes, trims the trees. How does it affect me?
Okay, to answer that question specifically, it's about land use, right? So traditional cycle-based approaches, you do one thing every 4 years. So I like to apply it to your backyard. So think about you as a resident owner with a backyard. If you only went in your backyard once every 4 years and addressed your vegetation issues in your backyard, you would have foundation issues, you would have sidewalk issues, you would have deck issues, you would have flower bed issues, and the cost to restore the damage you've done by neglecting it for 4 years, you can probably quickly figure that out in your head because you mow your yard how
I,
often?
I'll tell you a more important thing. My wife would probably leave me.
Yes, right? So if you look at traditional aspects of vegetation management on right-of-ways, it wouldn't even be acceptable in your backyard, correct?
That's
So
true.
when you talk about land use, why it matters to you is we're running across people's properties. All utilities have shared easements on private, commercial, public lands, right? Shouldn't the utilities be treating those properties based on their land use? So if you have wild spaces, what kind of wild space do you want? Do you want messy trees, ugly trees that have been sprayed, killed, cut, are growing out of sorts? Or do you want something that supports what's in that space, in that wild space for birds, for deer, for bears, for bobcats, whatever's in that space? Shouldn't we be looking at it and going, how do we produce not only a safe overhead environment for our wires, but what people use this for on the ground?
More
Um,
aesthetically pleasing, right? So
well, useful,
yes,
right?
useful too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Who cares what it looks like? Like if you look at prototypical utility responses, we're simply facilitating or encouraging the most aggressive non-residential vegetation on the planet to grow in these spaces because we attack it and we kill everything. Well, what's going to come back? The most aggressive plants, the plants with the most seeds, the plants with the strongest root systems, right? We're essentially going out there and inviting these monoculture environments. All aspens, all alders, all locusts, all this, all that. What we really need, and you can look at it with the pollinator aspects of endangered species today, right? What we really need is biodiversity and cultural land use. So what I'm finding with some of our approaches where we're in the space and we're going, hey, people ranch here. They want grass. And we're managing it to grass. Guess what they're helping us do? They're helping us manage it to grass. And so my cost structure reduced because my landowner is facilitating the same activity I am and we're
Interesting.
collaborating, right?
Yeah.
If we're in a wild space and they're hunting, we're like, well, what feeds deer? Don't attack those plants, attack the plants that don't feed deer, right? If we're in meadow environments with flowers and, weeds and productive plants that produce berries that feed birds, we're trying to facilitate or mimic that response because, again, we're managing from the standpoint of I'm not just managing trees anymore because I've taken it from trees and I'm trying to transition it to something. And we're actually managing the land use now. We're managing the environment. We're not just, there's a lot of trees here, let's kill trees.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No.
and we're doing it at a lower cost than people are managing just trees.
No, I mean it's such an important piece of the puzzle. And if I'm an average Joe, the other way I'm looking at it is you have these publicly well-known disasters. You got Maui
Mm-hmm.
storms. You got the California storms. Where you live up in the Texas Panhandle. You had some recent issues with veg management, right? So all these impact ratepayer cost. Somebody pays for it, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
ultimately, you also have outages in reliability metrics and issues that creep
Mm-hmm.
up, right?
Yes, sir.
Those are all important metrics because we look at the California storm, some sea hook failed that got into some veg management that was vulnerable, and major fire broke out. Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
Maui, if you will, right? The
Mm-hmm.
disaster, Lahaina fire out there. So maybe those are all important metrics too. Would you not agree on that?
Yeah, I think all of those things play in. The aspect of when you speak to fire specifically moves away from the vegetation and more to the structural maintenance management side, but it also moves to concepts of management that need to be addressed because they've never been questioned, which is off right of way management. So when you look at right of way, an effectively managed right of way for a transmission system is a fire corridor because it's low growing plants, right? Where does fire thrive? Right? High combustible, small stem size, dense vegetation, grass,
Got it.
shrubs, right?
Got it.
Weeds. So right of ways are going to be fire corridors, but that kind of fire is good because it stays low to the ground and it burns out quickly.
Yeah.
So the part that I think nobody's talking about, and I'd like to see the industry move towards this, is that transitional boundary from the easement to private, which we don't have rights to, right? How do we keep that fire corridor from making a bigger fire as it transitions off right away, which is a transitional plan, and we would need rights and permission and collaboration from the landowners to manage that type of activity. So if you think about like a pine tree needs to be cleared up to 12 feet off the ground, right? And if you just cut the lower limbs off, they don't regrow. That's a one-time activity, but you would have to do that to every pine tree as you transition for a specific distance away from the right of way, which would then create a better fire corridor. So those fires, when they hit a right of way, would shrink, lose heat, burn fast, but then not transition to the other side because they have nowhere to go.
That's honestly, I have never thought about it, and that is the reason why you're an expert in the industry. So, the low brush area, high density area in the right of way, it makes a lot of sense. But the fact is, you do transition into private land, and you don't necessarily have access to control that. What is the best way to do that? I mean, honestly, from an expert standpoint, how would you really handle that, given that you don't have control to get into their property?
Well, there's some people in California already producing the solution, and they're just collaborating with landowners. They're going to landowners. They're saying, "Hey, you and I have the same problem. Do you want fire on your property?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "This is what it takes to eliminate this threat from this area. Can we do it?" And these landowners are all actually going, "Yes, please do. I can't afford to do that." So I think there's a collaborative approach, and it's beneficial to both sides, right? It protects the utility from a liability standpoint. It's not,
Massive liability,
there
massive
is
outages.
cost, there is cost, but the cost benefit over time, because again, if we manage these spaces appropriately, eventually we can move from the applied, like cutting, spraying, removal, to biologic and cultural. So yeah, initially we have to do some work, but if we stay on it and we manage that transition, identified as ground cover conversion, over time, either the landowner can do it with his lawnmower, or the deer do it by eating plants that are sticking up, mice do it by eating seeds, and grasses and shrubs and plants that don't cause catastrophic fire events
Yeah.
actually block the problem.
No,
So
honestly, it's a massive issue if you think about it. Just the storm outages alone, if I remember right, it's about
Mhm,
150 billion bucks a year for Americans at the end of the day, right?
mhm,
The cost of it, right?
yes,
Now, it's not obviously not every storm outage cost is attributed to
mhm,
veg management, but fairly substantial
yeah,
if it is. In veg management is integral to having limited storm damage,
mhm,
right? Everybody knows that. So it's a that's an interesting piece. So you're saying that lidar can actually be used, lidar and AI
mhm.
can actually be used to break the cost barrier, if you will, with better data collection, better analysis, and things like that. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, so you take LiDAR initially, and that helps you prioritize. Then you move it to these real-time data collection platforms where you're in the field and you're actually tracking it from where you identified it through LiDAR. Hey, this is a problem area. And you're managing it through that transition. LiDAR becomes over time less and less critical. It becomes a necessity because things do change and you're always looking for that change management. But again, it adds to that AI approach because between the LiDAR, so instead of having every 4 years, every 6 years, right? This LiDAR picture, you also have data in between. So you're actually, again, if you look at AI and its capabilities, you're feeding it more data and it's learning. So through every LiDAR set, every 4 to 6 years, with all this data in between, AI could become
Yeah.
ultra intelligent, right? Ultra
I,
useful. We just basically feed that machine over time, and eventually, I almost imagine it being predictable, whereas today it's not even imaginable as to how you predict it.
100%,
To
100%.
to your point with what you said about predictions of fuse failures, right? If we have the right data, it's easy to say this is what leads to a fuse failure: age, weather, exposure to sun. And then AI knows these are the ones that have failed in the past. This is where we have exposure to sun. This is where we have exposure to weather, because we can take the data and go, what's driving this failure?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great stuff. You obviously work with a lot of people in the industry. So what are some of the implementation guidelines, considerations that you would uh, caution people with?
Um, so again, I think if you're looking at a solution that incorporates any type of software approach, the biggest thing you have to understand is what result you're pursuing and what measures help you understand the performance of that result. Because I think with our
This
data approaches,
goes back to your original leadership. What
yes,
are you measuring? What is the outcome that you want,
what
essentially?
is good?
Yes. What is good? Define
Um,
good.
I had a guy tell me, he said, if it can't be measured, it can't be done. And that sounds super simple, but how do you know where the finish is unless you've set a parameter that defines a finish line? So if it can't be measured, it can't be done. So I think with data, a lot of times we have no clue when done is. Like we're just collecting information and collecting, and we have scays of data. What is it telling us? What do we know? How, like, yeah, from a compliance
I asked what
standpoint,
you
I can
said.
go back in time and show, look, I was there.
Yeah.
Well, what does that
What
mean?
does it mean? I mean,
Yeah.
there's scores, terabytes and terabytes of
Hmm.
data that is out there. It can never be used.
Yeah, who would
Right.
watch soccer if you didn't know who won after 60 minutes,
Right.
right? So we have to set, so the advice I would give is understand what performance is, understand what measures drive performance, understand who is available to collect that performance information and when, and then outfit the people in the field and require them to collect that measure on a frequency that can drive performance. So if you look at what we've done with KYRO, we simply have developed very structured data sets for activities. And when we do these activities, we collect consistent information. And then over time, the information either tells us, are we doing good? Or the information you're giving us isn't good enough to tell us that. And then we change the data set, right? Because we either find out we don't know, or we find out we know and we improve, and we find out how we find out better. So you can be in the wrong place, but if you don't know where done is, you'll never get anywhere. You'll just have a lot of history. You'll be able to answer audit questions. Yep, we did that in 3 years ago, like we said we would, right? That's what most of our data is driven towards today.
Yeah.
Chain of custody, um, proof that we did something, information that proves that our program is being followed. It doesn't prove our program's good. It doesn't prove that what we're
Yeah.
doing is effective. It doesn't prove
They're
that,
doing something.
yeah, it just proves that we did it, right? It's
Right. That
done.
is so
We
true.
spent the money.
Yeah. That is
Yeah.
so true. What are some of the staff training and operational challenges that people should take into account, right, when you're introducing these data collection tools, LiDAR, as you're kind of embarking on your AI journey and things like that? What are some of the considerations from that standpoint?
Yeah. So when you talk about software in the world we work in specifically, which is vegetation, the biggest issue is people that use chainsaws don't want to be tech guys.
Fair
So
point.
just imagine that, right? So you really have to be sensitive to the fact that this has to be something that these guys that don't want to be tech people can do. So the thing I've seen that's been effective with the KYRO system is everybody's got thumbs and that everybody's got phones. KYRO operates a lot like applications all over the planet that people are using their thumbs with already. So when I give it to a person that mows yards or sprays trees or cuts trees, and I say, here, and they start moving their thumbs and it works, that overcomes a lot of the issue. Secondly, these guys don't want to be babysat. They didn't go out into the wilderness to cut trees so they could tell people what they're doing every 10 minutes, right? They're kind of
They
independent
want to be.
people.
Honestly, I deal with these guys. I've dealt with them all my life. They want to be out there. They don't want to be in the middle of
Yes.
a city. They don't want to talk to people.
Yes.
Well, you need people like that. Honestly, I mean, you
But
need those people to do their
they
work.
don't want to feel like you're putting them on a leash, right? Because
Yes.
that's why they're in these jobs. They want to be free. So then it drives to how do you get them to believe in the tool? And again, it comes back to performance. Everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to be good. If you can set them up to understand, this helps you be successful. This is how. When you tell me this, you've done a good job. Instead of when
Measurable.
instead of when you've told me this, you're exposed to danger because you might be in trouble. You say, look, when you've told me this, you've done your job and it's good enough. And we're going to celebrate you because the reality is if you told them to do the wrong thing, you find that out and that's a good thing, right?
100%.
It doesn't need to be a stick. So the biggest thing is you've got to implement these tools so that people feel like they're winning, right?
Make it easy for them to listen. Something I've driven across the companies I ran, because the companies I ran either are companies like KYRO, which is field data
Mhm,
collection software, or companies like Think Power, which has a heavy field workforce,
mhm,
right? Uh, I say that knowledge workers are in the office, right? In this case,
mhm.
it's you, right? And me. And then you have people in the field who, well, like you just described, they do what they do out there in the field. Who makes the money for the company? It's the guys in the field,
Yes.
right? And they don't want to moonlight as knowledge workers.
Yes.
But what has become over the last, candidly, the last several decades, since the proliferation of software, is the people in the office, they kind of put more and more responsibility on the guys in the field. And the softwares are oftentimes designed for the super user in the office, right? And
Yes.
somebody who purchases software, they go to school, they learn a lot and all these kind of things, and then they have these hours and hours of training in how to use the software, and they're super proud of the decision they make
Mhm,
to buy the software. But guess what? The guy in the field who's in your world wields a chainsaw,
mhm,
he is trained to do that. He is trained in safety. He's trained in how to keep his crew safe and
mhm.
human performance and all these kind of things. And then he or she doesn't really have hours and hours of training in the software, nor are they interested in that, right?
Mhm.
All that they want to do is take their phone, open it up, look at their app, open it, use it, and really, for 10 seconds, go back to using the
Yes.
chainsaw, right?
Yes.
But what do? We make their job complex because we want to make our job easier, because
Yes.
it's a recipe for disaster, right?
Yes.
The way I've always run companies is, hey, who who makes the company money? Like I said, the guy in the field.
Mhm.
Who is harder to train? It's the guy in the field, because they're all over the country.
Mhm.
Well, who's easier to train? It's the guy in the office, because
Mhm.
quick brown bag, lunch and learn, get everybody together, or Zoom meeting, they're out
Yes.
there. Let's make it easy for the people in the field to use software. That way
Yes.
they're able to give you the data that you can rely on with a high degree of certainty. That way you can use the data to do your work effectively, right?
Mhm.
And I know that's exactly how you think and operate, and that's why we love working with you, right? Because it's like, hey, make it easier for the people in the field. Help them give me the data effectively. That way I can put that data together with the LiDAR data,
Mhm.
mash it together, let AI run what it does, and let me make a decision. In a
Hmm.
nutshell, I know it's a lot what I said. In a nutshell, is that not the way you operate, Greg?
Yes, that's the perfect way to say it. And then on top of that, what I'm seeing with our crews, and we use contract crews. We don't staff people internally. So we're bringing these people in from the outside. They only show up 2 or 3 weeks a year on our systems, right? Well, what I'm seeing with this is these people are coming back and they're comparing the work they're doing in the industry to the work they're doing with us. And they love coming back to our work. So we're building alignment with these tools because they're seeing that their jobs are improving from participating in these tools, if that makes sense. It's benefiting them. Whereas most tools, to your point, benefit the office. So the people in the office's job gets easier because they have better information and more time, right? And they can follow up and
By the
yell
way,
at
there's nothing
people,
wrong with that.
right?
But
No,
nothing wrong. But make it easier for the guy in the field. Right?
yes, if it doesn't translate to something better for the person, that the question that you pointed out, why am I doing this? How does this serve me? You're just putting your job on me. So when we talk about implementation, we talk about you really have to build an idea and a foundational structure that incentivizes the people that make the company money, right? The more effective these people are, the less money your company will spend. The
Yeah,
more thorough they are, the less you'll be there, right? So give them a performance measure that makes them feel like they are the star athlete on the planet, because that's what they really are. These people are athletes. They're really physically talented, intelligently wired to do really difficult physical things under really bad circumstances. Think
weather
about wind,
conditions. I
think
mean, it's
about
hot.
rain, think about sun, think about bugs, think about holes in the ground and wet and water and steep terrain. And like, these are some of the best athletes on the planet. And if you treat them like they are the amazing athletes they are, they respond.
100%. You're out there in the elements. You're doing a job that many people don't want to do. I mean, listen,
Hmm.
most people, they go out for 10 minutes and they, oh, I got allergies, come back. Yeah,
Hmm.
I got a couple of mosquito bites, come back. I mean, these guys are
Hmm.
out there in the field. You want to make it easier for them to actually do their jobs, if you will, right? So,
Hmm.
uh, that's great. What are some of the regulatory and security considerations, as people think about all these software tools?
Yeah. So what's amazing about that is in the end, all the regulations really are what's driving why we're doing this, right? We're doing it to facilitate safe, reliable systems. Regulations are developed to produce safe, reliable systems. The the sad thing is regulation doesn't do that, right? Regulation is just a bunch of words on paper that hold you to an account as it relates to reporting and auditing. So when you talk about the benefit as it relates to the regulatory stance, these tools actually facilitate your compliance with regulation because you're doing it in concert with the work. So making these tools more readily available actually facilitates regulation during the work and identifies gaps that you may not even be aware of that you can produce a better solution for to address these regulations. Because again, the government isn't bad. They're not trying to like put things on us that don't need to be done. They're literally out there going, how do we produce a consistent, reliable system, right?
In the consistent, reliable system, the challenge becomes when when you're spread across such a large country like
Hmm.
U.S., across such diversity of culture, diversity of
Hmm.
you know uh, vegetation species,
Hmm.
diversity of terrain, and diversity
Hmm.
of people. I mean, it's hard, right? It's hard to
Yes.
see one size fits all. I mean, on the veg management side, I remember working for a large utility as a vendor. They're based out of the Northeast, but they had some assets down in Texas. They said that, hey, you need to have air entrainment and concrete of at least so much. But the guys in Texas didn't know that because there is no freezing issue
Yes.
in South Texas, right? So
Yes.
you can't necessarily implement that standard, if you will. Same thing goes to wedge management as well from a
Hmm.
regulatory standpoint, right? So
Yes, sir. Yeah. So again, the protocol is going to be similar, but to your point, there's nuance. What works in the panhandle of Texas doesn't even work in central Texas, right? but the protocols do, the data does. Like I can tell you that if I measure herbicide output as I travel down a right of way, that applies to every system on the planet because then I have a performance indicator that helps me measure size and density without counting every tree, right? Um, 10 gallons of herbicide indicates that I have more vegetation than 6 gallons of herbicide all the time. Now, the photo that we produce through the collection helps me confirm that my assumption of 6 gallons isn't more than 10 gallons. Because if I put 6 gallons down in a bad area, it just means I didn't do the work. Right? So the photo helps me defend against that issue so my assumptions are correct. And again, if we take AI, if I consistently track information in a consistent format over time, AI can start to be my analytic resource for the review of these gobs of data. So it's easy on 300 miles, but imagine 13 or 20,000 miles. I'm going to get thousands of photos a day. AI could simply in minutes look at last year's photo, this year's photo, and go, is it better or is it worse? Because we can define criteria in those photos that indicate that,
Got
right?
it. Got it.
So now my people in the office, instead of looking at 10,000 pictures, are looking at the 6 that matter or
Matter clearly.
the 300 that matter, right?
100%. 100%. No, it's good.
So super exciting stuff when
No,
you think about it looking forward.
no, it's phenomenal. What does that mean for utilities in terms of financial benefit, right? And that translates to ratepayers because, at the end of the day, ratepayers are funding utilities. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I can tell you specifically what it means for the utility I'm working for. We're looking at 10-year forecasts as it relates to vegetation management that are declining and normalizing. So we're actually moving from higher cost vegetation management structures to future forward-looking cost structures that cost less over 10 years than they did the first 3, right?
Now, Greg, let me pause you there.
Okay.
You're saying in this high inflation environment where everything is going up,
Yes.
you're actually bringing costs down. You're not joking. Did I hear you right?
Yes, I'm telling you that I have cost models going back to 2018. And I have forward-looking cost models that go to 2031 currently. And I'm measuring my performance as it relates to those measures every single year. And generally speaking, I'm beating my forecasted performance measures, which means I'm doing more work in a year than I thought, which means it's actually cheaper than I forecasted. And my 2031 numbers are lower than my 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. I think 2029 is when we really see a significant decrease. But if I take those numbers from 2031 and forecast them forward with worst case scenario expectations, my 2031 to 2041 numbers look like 60 times better than the previous 10 years.
Wow, man, your vendors should probably be not in great love with you because you're keeping them revenue down, but your utility should be loving you right now just because
Well,
of it.
when you look at the margin based work, we're just giving them less work. We're not giving them less margin. So if you look at what we're doing, we're not asking. So part of the utility problem today is they're saying, hey, we have these escalating budgets and we have all this work and we don't have enough people to do all the work. What we're going to do is we're going to produce normalized work at the same margin the industry is currently enjoying. And we
Yeah,
could do it on thousands of more miles. So really, the industry isn't going to suffer. They're just going to be treating more miles per year
they
at
have to get
lower density and size structures with fewer
efficient.
people and fewer safety issues and fewer reliability issues. Our storm outages will improve, right? All these things. In the 10 years I've been operating at the utility I'm in currently, we've never had a vegetation related outage on any system we've managed.
Wow, wow, that's something to be proud of. I'll tell you what, honestly, you know, I know because you and I have been in the industry long enough. You've seen the evolution of the industry. I've seen the evolution of the industry. There's recent talk about how data centers are actually making the rates go up, ratepayers go up. Sure, in certain areas, certainly Ohio, I know
Mhm.
certain things are happening. Georgia, The regulators have actually pushed all the costs to data centers alone. But truly, if you were to look at it, the problem is really inefficiency, right? If you actually bring in efficiency into the system, I do think you can actually, I mean, what you're doing, honestly, right? You're bringing in efficiency, if you will, right? You're like, hey, you're going from fixed cycle to targeted approach, right? Condition-based planning approach, right? And your vendors are still making their margins, which means they're going to do more. Their safety is going to be less impacted. And honestly, if they do it right, they can potentially have higher margins. They actually
Hmm.
do more customers, and
Hmm.
it's better for the ratepayers, better for the utilities,
Hmm.
and better for the environment, right? When you
Yes.
talk about in the sense that, hey, you kind of treat them wildly, the wild trees come back up, right?
Hmm.
You make a targeted approach. All these things has a well-rounded impact is going to be better for everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah. When you look at everybody in this world, if you've ever gone hiking or you enjoy being in the
I love
wild,
it. I love hiking.
right? You can probably remember a place from when you were like 8 years old that you went to and it was a meadow. And if you hike to that place today, it's still a meadow. Our right of ways can be transitioned to that biologic platform so that essentially, biologically, we're producing meadows on our right of ways. And we're just helping Mother Nature to make sure that the things that impact that, like adjacent tree corridors and things, aren't going to overpower that meadow. The work is transitioning to the meadow, right? And if we manage these cycle based programs, all we're doing is we're attacking something and then we're letting it recover, attacking and let it recover. If we know anything about plants or even about people, if you attack something in a certain way and over time that same thing recovers from the way you attacked it, guess what it does? It gets better at recovering from the way you're attacking
Yeah.
it, which means the problem isn't getting smaller. And if
Judge,
you look at industry
Judgment Day.
costs,
It's Judgment
the
Day, right?
well, yeah, but if you look at industry costs, the reason they're escalating is because our practices are driving escalations in vegetation, which drives escalation in costs. Um,
100%.
we're
100%.
doing the opposite with our program. We're actually de-escalating and changing things. Now it costs money up front, right? The money that these people are spending in all these places on a 4-year cycle, I'm spending it and then I'm spending a little less and then I'm spending a little less so that in 10 years I spend hardly anything, right? So it's we don't have a number yet because we're only about 6 years into this protocol because 2018 we started using data collection and systems. 2020 is when we got the first indicators that said your size and densities 2 years ago, 2018, when you measured this, are coming back so quickly that you're going to be back at the cost structure of 2018 by 2021. And when we recognized that, I said, well, that's not what we're trying to do. And I don't want that for a job, right? I was looking at my own professional approach. I was like, I don't want a job that's going to escalate and get harder.
Right.
So I changed what I was doing and we used data to help drive what that meant. And we did a lot of research and we're doing things that literally, if you Google them right now, if you use the best AI search today on the internet, it would tell you what I'm doing doesn't work.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
literally, I'm being told by industry leaders, what you're doing doesn't work. And I'm enjoying the benefits of what I'm doing.
Wow. Wow. I hope it spreads to the industry and others see the benefits of it and whatnot. No, it's an interesting way. So it's a great discussion. Can we get into rapid fire questions, Greg?
Sure,
Are you
go for it,
ready?
Hari.
Are you
Yeah,
sweating?
ready. No, I'm
Underneath
enjoying
your
this.
cap?
This has been a fun conversation.
Yeah. All right. So let's go. Um, are you a pro sports fan or college sports or no sports at all?
I watch mostly pro sports. If I'm watching college football, it's Boise State. That's where I'm
Boise
from.
State. All right. Now let's stick to pro sports then. Favorite football team?
Green Bay Packers. They won
Yeah,
last night. Go
I know.
Packers.
Great night last night, right? So Aaron
Yes.
Rodgers or Jordan Love?
Well, right now it's Jordan Love because he's a Packer. I'm kind of like I'm beholden to my team. Sorry, if you're
All
a
right, so
traitor, you're a
let me
traitor.
go back in history. Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre?
Brett Favre.
Why is that?
I loved the way he played the game. He just was out there to have fun. He made everybody better. He was never mad at anyone if he did something wrong. He was up for the next throw. He just played the game like a kid would, and it was
Yeah,
fun to watch.
yeah, no, interesting. I've been to the Lambeau Field, by the way.
Okay, that's awesome.
Have you been there?
No, I've never been to Lambeau Field. I've gone and watched the Packers 2 times in Dallas, and both times we won, which made that trip very fun.
Oh, very nice, very nice, very nice, very
Sorry
nice.
to the Dallas Cowboys fans.
You know, it's hard being a Dallas Cowboy fan. You know that's
Yes, sir. Well, it didn't used to be. Ask Brett Favre, right? I think he beat the Cowboys one time.
that is so true. All right, so pro sports. You watch NBA?
Yes, I do. I watch the NBA.
Who's your favorite team, or which is your favorite team?
So it goes back in time. I'm like the Michael Jordan era of basketball. That's when I was watching it the heaviest. So my favorite team is the Portland Trailblazers, and you have to go back to when Clyde the Glide
Mike
Drexler.
Dexter, right?
Yeah, he was their player. I actually shook his hand when he was in
Really?
Boise one time. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, he would stay at a hotel my friend's brother worked at, and so he'd give us insight into when they were going to be coming in and out. And then we'd stand
Interesting.
by the door. They were getting off the bus. And so
Interesting.
Clyde Drexler, I think I was 21, was walking past, and I said, "Sir, it's nice to meet you." And he stuck his hand out, shook my hand.
Wow. That's something, man. Something. I
Yeah.
mean, the Bulls and the Trailblazers, they had one or two playoff.
Yes. Yeah, Jordan beat Clyde Drexler every time they faced each other. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clyde didn't win a ring until he went to Houston and played
Yeah.
with Olajuwon.
Yeah. No, I remember that.
Yeah.
Your Trailblazers, I know you're going through a little bit of a challenge the last week or
yeah,
so.
we have not been a good team since Pippen was there.
Yeah, it's a long time back.
Been a
right?
while. But you know, the team you love is the team you love.
Hey, listen, I mean, that's what happens when you draft Greg Oden over Kevin Durant, right? So
That's right.
okay.
Oh,
All right.
sad day.
So let's go into your favorite thing, right? Hunting. Are you a bow guy or a rifle guy?
Yeah, so I did some research when I was young on cowboys and Indians, so I'm a rifle guy because they tend to be more efficient.
Interesting. So what do you like? Browning, Remington, Savage, Weatherby?
Yeah, so it's not really about the brand of the rifle. I own 3 different brands. I shoot a 270 caliber. When I look at a rifle specifically, it's large game, so bears, deer, elk, antelope. So 270 is when you take it from the standpoint of size of the bullet, grains of the bullet, impact to the animal you're trying to target, and just travel up to about 600 yards. It's a very effective weapon size.
So it's neither 30-06, 308. It's 270. That's what you use.
Yeah, 270 is just slightly smaller and faster than a 30-06 and bigger than a 308.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, man. That is a fun conversation, Greg. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for obviously I've known you for almost a decade now. You're just obviously always leading on the leading forefront of electric utilities on the veg management space, asset inspection space. Hope you continue to do that. Hope we continue to partner with you and do fun things together.
Yeah, Hari, what I would have to say to you is your technology team is amazing. If you can give them a problem, they have a solution. They don't oversell the solution, and they'll tell you if you're trying to be silly. They'll be like, that can't be done in software. If you try, you're going to spend $1 million and not be successful. So super honest group of people, and they're always looking for the fastest way to do something simply and make it actually work.
No, thank you for the kind words there. Honestly, you're right. Actually, not every problem can be solved with software. A lot of it is a process problem. People try to actually try to force fit a software into a process problem, and we try to be very, very candid about it, right? So because it's never going to be a long-term solution, long-term relationship, right? So Greg Smith, my friend, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an honor to host you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the invitation.
Coming up next part of Brian Irwin's episode.
Our weekly win call at 409, and we know in this industry, brother's keeper is a big term, right? We want to be our brother's keeper. And
In the next part of Brian's episode, we continue our conversation on building a transparent culture where every good catch matters. Brian explains his brother's keeper philosophy and why he traded the safety cop mentality for a leadership style centered on care. We also dive into the future of AI and safety, his core belief that no one should sacrifice their life for their livelihood, and a championship-level halftime pep talk for the field. Stay tuned for part 2.